When we speak about multiculturalism, we speak about cultures that are rooted in the people's religion. These faiths confess different gods. So in a way you could say that Canada can be characterized by its polytheism. There are different faiths, different religions, and its rulers, its officials, its judges are motivated by their religious beliefs.
A reminder today about what ARPA is really all about, in the form of a devotional presented at the organization's recent board meeting. On the news portion, a look back at that week-long meeting, some plans for the new year, including, we're happy to say, an expansion of the Lighthouse News schedule. Also, a couple of court cases on parental rights, an apparent double standard on abortion services, and a call to action on conscience rights for Ontario doctors.
And now, Lighthouse News. Lighthouse News is a presentation of ARPA, the Association for Reform Political Action. Here's your host, Al Sebring.
First of all, a programming note. The ARPA board met this past week, and among the things the board members decided was to increase the frequency of Lighthouse News. Starting in March, this podcast will be delivered into your inbox weekly instead of twice a month. The schedule will be somewhat reduced during the summer months and around Christmas, but for the most part, you can start expecting weekly delivery of this program into your computer, iPad, or other subscription service every Monday, starting on March 2nd. That was one of many issues discussed at the board meeting. Executive Director Mark Penninga says ARPA's legal arm, headed up by Andre Schutten, will continue to advocate for specific policies in the courts, with a couple of big decisions expected in the next few months.
Of course, we can expect to see the outcomes from the Carter and Loyola cases, so that's the euthanasia case and the parental authority case coming from the Supreme Court, likely this spring.
Penninga says the board decided it will continue work on the legal front and try to tie that in more explicitly with policy development.
In the last couple of years, we've had quite an expansion in our legal efforts, and that's something we hope to continue with. And at the same time, we're making a real concerted effort to make sure that that legal arm of ARPA is tied in very well with the rest of what we're doing. So with our policy and with what we call organics, just the grassroots action that all of us are involved with.
On the policy front, the focus will shift slightly this year from where it was in 2014.
This is the year where ARPA is focusing more on the provincial legislatures. Every other year we go to Parliament with the God in Government. This year we're looking forward to going to Queen's Park in Ontario, to the Manitoba legislature in Winnipeg and Edmonton. Victoria remains in question at this time.
Overall, Penninga says the board meeting was extremely positive on a number of fronts.
It's been overwhelming just to see visibly the hand of God on this organization, His providence. In particular, what stands out is just the quality people that are on the board. We've been blessed with a new board member this year, Colin Postma. He comes from the Hamilton area in Ontario. He's already been a leader of an ARPA chapter in Hamilton ARPA. And we said farewell this past year to James Teitzma, who's actually running for provincial office in Manitoba. And just to see a very cohesive board and staff is an incredible blessing. I'd say that's one of the highlights for sure.
ARPA's explicitly pro-life arm, We Need a Law, was also represented at the board meeting. Mike Schutten was there. He'd just finished writing an op-ed that was published in the National Post last month on the potential for Health Canada approval for the abortion drug RU-486, the so-called morning after pill. The central tenet of the op-ed was to highlight the double standard inherent in that possible approval, the notion that while there can never be any political discussion on restricting abortions, any notion of expanding its availability seems to get an almost automatic pass in terms of any public debate.
It's expanding access to abortion. And if we look at even the most recent history of the abortion dialogue in Canada, it's pretty clear that political parties are very resistant to debating abortion and a so-called woman's right to choose, or what we would like to say as the rights of preborn children. And this was most recently manifested with Motion 408. We saw where Mark Warrow had put forward a motion, and that motion was kiboshed before it even made it to the floor of the House of Commons. So all the political parties have said we're not interested in debating abortion and preborn human rights. But here, if RU-46 is approved, that would mean that there's a huge expansion to abortion access without any public debate, without any consultation with our elected lawmakers.
Schutten says there could be a silver lining here because apparently Health Canada has put off a final decision on this file until late this year. That means that at the political level, the government might still be considering not giving its approval.
It's very hard to get information from Health Canada because they come out with a consistent line that, applications for approval are communications just between them and the company applying, so they don't give any information. Some journalists in Canada continue to dig on this topic, and most recently the Globe and Mail actually came out and said it looks like it's been pushed off until the fall. Incidentally, that would be after the federal election, which politically speaking would probably be a lot more conducive to Mr. Harper's plans. So I highly suspect that there is some political interference here, and it looks like it might be benefiting the anti-abortion movement at this point in Canada.
On the legal front, a couple of interesting parental rights cases have been developing in courtrooms in Manitoba and down in the States in Maryland. In a case in Winnipeg, a mother is being taken to court charged with child abandonment for leaving her 6-year-old daughter home alone while she went grocery shopping. In Maryland, parents are being prosecuted for allowing 2 kids, aged 6 and 10, to walk home alone from a neighborhood playground without supervision. ARPA lawyer Andre Schutten says the Winnipeg case is troubling in the context of the way these laws are enforced in Canada.
Prosecutors have a lot of discretion in pursuing charges, and it might be that in this case that particular prosecutor has a particular pet project here and is trying to advance that cause. I'm not sure. But I think in this instance it might have just been enough for the police or the prosecutor to say to the mom, 6 years old might not be the right age to be leaving a child home for an hour while you run out for groceries. But to prosecute them criminally